Well, Chancellor Rishi Sunak's popularity with voters has plunged amid a continuing debate over the government's reaction to surging living costs and a number of personal scandals. Well, that's according to a new poll. The Chancellor's net favourability was down 24 points since just before his spring statement on the 23rd of March to reach minus 29. A survey by pollsters YouGov has found, that is. The poll moves the Chancellor's support down below that of Sir Keir Starmer, who sits at minus 25. Now, this is the first time that a Tory Chancellor has ever polled below Sir Keir Starmer. Well, joining me in the studio to discuss this is the co-founder and director of Delta Poll, Joe Twyman. Well, welcome to the programme. First of all, Rishi Sunak seemed like he was floating above all of politics for quite some time during the pandemic. Now it seems to have flipped completely around.
Well, that's right, but I think it would have taken a very brave person, shall we say, to think that his rating 2 years ago, where more than 60% of people were saying that he was doing a good job, it would have taken a brave person to think that that would continue. At that time, really anyone in the general public knew about Rishi Sunak was that he was handing out a lot of money, whether it was furloughs or Eat Out to Help Out, a series of initiatives. Now, handing out money generally tends to be popular, but if that's all you know about someone, it's inevitable that further down the line, when more information becomes available, that's going to take a hit for him. And so we've recently had the cost of living crisis, the spring statement, which was not particularly well received, and these most recent revelations about his wife, all of which have, if you like, added to the information that people have about him. They can make a fuller judgment, and that judgment, increasingly, is not positive.
Are the people of Britain that fickle? That when we see politicians handing out money, we don't expect that will have to be paid for at some point in time? Is it really just a sort of snapshot by snapshot assessment? Do people not think things through further forward, as we might assume?
Well, in the artificial construction of a survey instrument, when I'm asking a member of the public what they think of someone, they're forming an opinion based on the information that they have. And the information, as I say, 2 years ago was very positive. And yes, you could argue, well, maybe people should take the long-term calculations into effect. That's not really the way that public opinion works. It's certainly not the way that politics works.
I suppose Rishi Sunak is one of the few politicians in the country people can actually name. Most people couldn't name more than a handful of members of the cabinet, and probably only a few could actually name the leader of the opposition as well. When it comes to these big names in politics, these big beasts, these people that actually cut through, does that tend to affect how people view parties and the overall voting intentions as well?
That's a really good question, and you're right that the average person in the street, and the 50% of people less engaged than the average person in the street, isn't paying much attention to politics, and certainly not most of the, shall we say, more minor names in politics. And so people know who the Prime Minister is, but beyond that, actually, you'd probably be surprised at the lack of name recognition that a lot of people get. There's no doubt that particularly the leaders and also the other senior figures within a party, most notably the Chancellor or the Shadow Chancellor, do inform what people think about a party, whether they think they can trust it, whether they think it can be effective, whether they think it can do right by them. Those sort of grand narratives, they're very much led by how people perceive the leader.
And looking at the leadership prospects of the Conservative Party, has Rishi Sunak potentially missed a trick? If 2 months ago he would have decided to walk out of the cabinet, resign over Partygate, that would probably have forced the fooling of Boris Johnson. There'd probably be a leadership contest, and Rishi Sunak could well be Prime Minister today. Has he missed his chance?
I think that is very unlikely to have ever happened. 2 months ago, his wife would still have been receiving more than £11 million, if reports to be believed, in dividends every year. 2 months ago, his wife would still have been paying £30,000 to secure her non-dom status, even though the average UK disposable household income is only £31,000 a year. Those facts aren't going away. This was always going to be difficult for Rishi Sunak. He has, or at least he had, a lot of things going for him, but it was inevitable down the track that the problems would persist. I think an interesting question is to ask whether 2 years ago he believed his own hype, or whether he thought, actually, I've got all this coming, I'd better get as much done as I can now before the proverbial hits the fan.
It is a remarkable situation. A week is a very long time in politics. It seems like we've been saying this ad nauseum since 2016, really. But what a remarkable time. Joe Twyman, thank you so much for talking us through those really interesting issues right there.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.